So let's indent it. And here, notice the difference. We have our content wrapper, which is just everything on the page. So everything below the nav bar is going to be in that content wrapper. Then the portfolio items wrapper. This is going to give us the ability to have one spot we can go to where we know this is what stores the collection of portfolio items. Then down below that, we're going to have the portfolio item wrapper, just like this. So we're having our kind of our master one here. This is our master wrapper. Then we have the collection wrapper, and then here we have the single one. So if it helps you to visualize how it works, if you look at the finished version, the entire page, everything below the nav, is inside a content wrapper. Inside of that is the items wrapper that has all of them. And then each one of these, so like this Quip one, this DevCamp one, those are each their own singular wrapper. Now let me give us some more space so we don't go too far off the screen. And so now inside of here, what I want to do is actually build out what one of these is going to look like. So I'm going to just say div. I'm going to write this one all out, and I'll show you why here in a second. So I'm going to say div class portfolio dash img dash background. Now, obviously, you can call these whatever you want, but I like my names to be very readable. And this tells me that this div is going to have a portfolio image background. Now I'm going to add a inline style. So this inline style is going to be a little snippet of CSS. So this is going to have a little bit of CSS code. So I'm going to say background dash image colon URL. And then inside of here, I'm going to pass in parentheses. And the parentheses is going to be a path to the image I want to grab. So here I'm going to say images slash portfolio1.jpg, and that's it. And then from there, I have to close that off, and then it automatically closed the div for me. So let's hit save here, and let's just make sure that this is making it onto the page and we don't have any URL issues. So if I hit refresh here, it's not going to show up because we haven't given it a height yet, but let's make sure it's in the HTML. So I'm going to click on content wrapper, items wrapper, item, and then you can see we have this background image right here, and it is pointing to the portfolio JPEG. It appears that everything there is working. So if you're curious on why that didn't show up, it's because we're going to do a little trick. If you notice what we have here, where we have this code that is layered on top of the image, and we have this cool little animation and this fading, that is something that HTML and CSS right out of the box really does not do. So we need to have a way of implementing that kind of style. So the way I did it was creating a div, and its only job is to have an image and to have that image as its background. Now we're going to have the text in a completely separate div, and so let's add that part now. So I'm going to come here and make sure you're outside of that portfolio item wrapper, or I'm sorry, the portfolio image background. And now let's create another div here, and this one I'm just going to say image dash text wrapper. And here I'm going to have one div that is going to manage the logo. So I'll just call that logo wrapper. And then inside of here, I'm going to have the image. Now, you're going to see two ways of working with images with HTML and CSS. The first is when you want a background image, then you use straight CSS code, just like we have right here, with a call to the URL of wherever it's at. Now, if you're using images inside of your HTML, then you want to use what is called the img tag, and then you pass in src, which is short for source, and then you pass in the path. So for my first one, it was images slash logos slash quip .png, and make sure you don't have any spelling mistakes or anything like that, or else it will not find that. And so that is going to be the logo wrapper, and then below that is going to be the subtitle. So here I'm just going to call it subtitle, and you can add whatever you want in there. Now, I personally, because these are all my own actual portfolio projects, I'm just going to go off screen really quick, and let me copy that. So I'll hit save, and now we should actually have that. So let's switch over here, hit refresh, and now you can see that that's working. Now the image itself is white, so you can't see it on this white background, but now you can see that it's at least there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I'm going to pause the video right now, and I'm going to copy and paste all of these. And I don't think that it doesn't really serve you any purpose to watch me do that. So what I'm going to do, just so you know, so you can follow along, is I'm going to take the singular portfolio item wrapper. I'm just going to go and I'm just going to copy until its closing div tag. So I'm just going to do this 12 times, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to call the appropriate logos. Now for you, it doesn't matter whatsoever which one you use, and I'm also going to increment this value. So I'm going to do portfolio 1, 2, 3, etc., and update the subtitle. So I'm going to pause the video, do that so that we have all 12 of them on the page when I come back. And we're back. So all I did, like I mentioned, was I just duplicated each one of those portfolio item wrapper classes and everything inside of them. And then I just updated the logo name and the subtitle, but none of this matters because this is specific to my personal portfolio. Yours is going to be different. So you can really have just copied the identical one 12 times. So now that we have that, and you can just go verify here that that's working. So you can see that has each one of the items there now. Now we can start adding the styles. So at the very bottom here on portfolio styles, I'm going to take the portfolio items wrapper. Now make sure that you spell it correctly. It's portfolio items, plural, wrapper. And then inside of here, we're going to use CSS grid once again. So I'm going to say display grid. And then from here, this is going to be a little different. We don't want each one of them to take up from the full left side to the right side. So I'm going to say grid template columns, which is what we used before. But now I'm going to say 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. So what this means is it's going to give each one of the columns, and it's going to have 3 of them. So we're going to have 3 columns here, and it's going to give each one of them their own little full-sized column. So now let's hit refresh. And now you can see that it's moved them so they're all in their own columns. Obviously still a lot of work to do, but notice how easy that was. Within 2 lines of code, we were able to create an entire grid layout. I can tell you, as someone who's been doing this for a very long time, that it used to be much more challenging than that. So that is something that I really enjoy using now, is tools like CSS Grid and Flexbox. So now with that in place, let's go and let's grab the portfolio item wrapper. And here we're just going to add a position to it. So I'm going to say position relative. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow us to have some more flexibility with how we position each one of the items inside of it. So I already mentioned how behavior like this, where you have text and images sitting on top of other images, by default HTML and CSS don't really allow for that kind of thing. So we're going to have to kind of force that to happen. And so the first step in that is by adding a position relative. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start styling that image background. So now I'll say portfolio-img-background. And this